Well, welcome back to No Rules Art with Crafty Sue. Today I'm going to dive into more of the mixing of colors and how to get comfortable with that. And we're going to do green mixing just because I have a little gal back here who has a little green dress on. But her little green dress started out looking like this. Just gray, just plain old gray. And I couldn't take it anymore. She has to have some color. So in mixing your colors, and we're using, since I want green, but I want to give it depth. I want to give it some kind of texture where it's three-dimensional. Granted, this is a three-dimensional item. I mean, it's got texture already. So the reason why I start with this is because when you go to canvas, you have to be able to create a 3D effect. And the way you do that is through perspective and depth and changing of shading and color and darkness and where your light comes from. And this is kind of like it's turned out to be a pretty good prelude in teaching someone how to come to a painting that they never knew they were able to do by just showing them how to get that effect. If you see something flat in a picture, it's flat. You don't see any kind of depth to it. And that's why when I first started in art, I did a lot of sketching, black and white. Black and white sketches are my favorite because of the depth that can be brought out in a black and white picture. I have some on my Facebook page that I did, and I am able to, with black and white, get more detail. You can do it in color. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. Paintings behind me here, those two small ones are ones that I actually did. I don't know if you can, there's a jet duck down. They're both seascapes. The one in the center was done by my husband's late brother when he was a young man and still living now. And he inspired me to really get my seascapes down. And I studied his brother's brushstrokes in order to do that. And if you're already painting and you just want to improve on a certain brushstroke, go to the art museum and go up close and look at the brushstrokes. Don't worry about the color or anything. Look at the brushstrokes. You can tell which direction they've gone. You may not know which brush was used, but you can tell which direction. So when it comes to making something look realistic, popping, so to speak, or giving you that, invoking you into thinking, ooh, I could actually touch that. If this was flat on a canvas, you want to be able to say that. If this was a canvas and I was painting this, I could show you, and I'm going to eventually, how to make it look like this does in this way. Three-dimensional. That's called perspective. Perspective is depth. The depth to something. And in order to figure out the color scheme, so to speak, you want to have, since I know I want this to be a green, but I don't know exactly which shade of green is going to like really light me up, so to speak. And I know what I have in my mind, so I want to get there. And the way you get there is, one of the ways you can do it is get these little canvas cards, okay? You can use them for oil or acrylic. There are specific ones for watercolor, but we're not doing watercolor just yet. So you get these little squares, and they come in a pack of 2 or 3, I believe, and make these your color chart. And have a good fine point marking pen of some kind to put your recipe, I call it, next to it. So I'm not going to label these just yet because I've kind of done this one before, where I took, and I know I use a lot of green because I do a lot of landscapes, so I always have a big tube of green. And this is just your basics at the craft store. It says for the color deep green is what it says, deep green. Then I had a smaller tube from a different acrylic set that says grass green. And so I stuck them next to each other to see if there was any difference, because the deep green is kind of where I want to go, but not so deep. I want more of an emerald color, if I can. And if you look, you can see this, I'm going to point it this way. This is the deep green, and then this is the grass green. Well, the grass green looks a little bit darker and there's more yellow to it. If you can kind of get your brain out of the box, so to speak, and pick apart a color and see other colors within that color, you're gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome anyway. because everyone's an artist. You're born an artist, you didn't even know it yet. So in order to mix and do one of these, that's what I'm going to show you how to do, is make your own color card, and then you'll find out what colors that you can actually do. Well, I'm going to take, and when you do these, you just want a small bit of it. And that's where you can judge when you want to go make it again. You can write on the back of this card. There's the lines back here where you're supposed to sign your painting. You can put back here, the first row had this, 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 this. Okay, and you're going to know what, if you do one stroke of the paint, you're going to put 1 or 2 next to it to get that color. So I'm taking this deep green, and I just dabbled it in there, and I'm going to put it right here. So it looks like that. So I'm like, well, that's not exactly the color I want. So I can take the same brush, it's okay, because you're going to mix it anyway. And I'm going to take a little dabble of this grass green, and I do the same amount, and put on top, and mix those together. Well, I'm looking at that and I go, doesn't look much different. Now, what is in green is green. It's a primary color. You don't mix anything to get green. To get purple, though, you use red and blue. And since I know that, and I know red and blue is purple, or a purple shade, I have a deep violet down here. Now that means I'm adding red to my green. I'm also adding blue to that green. So I really don't want a lot, because it'll turn brown. Because red, blue, and green makes brown, believe it or not. So I took, half that amount in this purple. I'm going to mix that up there and see what I get. Well, that's a really deep, it's almost like, it's like a forest green, which would make sense. A green and a brown is kind of forest green or a hunter green. So it's a really deep color green now. Almost looks probably brown to you guys. How do I lighten that up? Well, remember what I said about you can have a dark color and it's really hard to lighten it, but it's easier to darken a color? This is going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So I'm going to take a little bit of white here. I'm not going to use a lot of it. I'm just going to go one little dab of white. Just that much. Just a tiny bit. I'll mix that in there and see what happens. Well, now look what I have. That's a moss green. Because that other green was so dark, it couldn't get much lighter. It only got to there. Okay, so I did a half amount of the other two. Now if I added more, if I added like, say a full brush full, like I started out with, then it becomes almost like it's a seafoam green. So I could put on the back here, and I know which ones I have laid out, how many dots that I did, and then I put that on the back and say this would be number 1, I'll put a mark on there. That's what it is. But that's not the color I'm looking for, is it? No, not even close. So I know that yellow lightens things up, so does white. But white doesn't lighten a green enough to keep the green integrity. So what I'm going to do is, I have several different yellows. I have a yellow medium. Then I have what I call lemon yellow. I call lemonade yellow. And it's actually called lemon yellow. And then there's the one that's kind of got some orange in it. You can kind of see there's a real orangey tint to this yellow. And so that means there's a little bit of red in there probably, because red and yellow is orange. And that's why the color wheel would be really helpful for anyone starting out. And this one just says cadmium yellow medium hue, which means it's in between. It's not the light yellow, it's not the dark yellow, it's one in between. Now I know, since my green is so, the dark green is so dark, that maybe I should do just a half. I'm going to do it on the board here so you can see. I'm going to do like I did the first time, the same amount, just one dab, boom, put it on there. There's my dark green. Then I'm going to take this medium yellow, and this is why sometimes I say get a piece of aluminum foil and just kind of use it, because then you can just throw it away instead of having to wash a palette. and just do it. I mean, literally, not, oh gosh, that was too much. I'll use it if other things going on, and do just a dab, and then put that in there with that green. And what do I get? Now we're on the right track. Look how bright it is compared to the muted one. This is like the seafoam green. This is a more green. I call that grass green. So I really like that. But I don't have as much green in there as I want, so I'm going to add one more. So I've got 2 of the dark green mixed with 1 of that yellow, and now I've got almost the emerald green that I want, because I took a dark green and a medium yellow to make a medium green. This is things you play with. You don't really, unless you have something that has the perfect color you want. Some people will buy a set of acrylic paints that has every single color and they don't have to mix a thing. I like to experiment. So if I'm going to put this on her dress, that is a beautiful Kelly green. Over top of the gray, you can pick up, I'm going to put some on the top here. I really like what turned out. Is a beautiful emerald green. I hope you guys can see that. Can you see how beautiful that emerald green is? And that was a medium yellow with a dark green mixed together. Now, there are wrinkles in this dress, okay? Wrinkles that would need a darker shade of green, but not so super dark that it takes away from, being able to tell what it is. So I'm going to put some more of this beautiful green here. I'm going to show you where the wrinkles are on the top. There's a wrinkle here in the statue. And then there's here like a crease, and there's a crease here. And those are the things that you want, whether it be 3-dimensional like this, or on a canvas, you want those to stand out. So if this was a flat surface, you would want to be able to feel like it was raised up. It gives you that effect. It draws you to it. So what are we going to do to get that effect? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take that grass green that was actually darker than the first green. We're actually going to use that to do that little effect. I love how this color turned out. Okay, so wherever you want a shadow, that's where the dark part comes. And when you do that, I'm going to rinse this out. You don't want to use a thick brush. You want to use something that you have some control over. So what I do, I'll use one of 2 kinds of brush. I'll either use a smaller flat tip or straight cut brush, or I'll use one of these. It's not a liner brush, but it comes to a point. So I'm going to take that dark green all by itself. I'm not mixing it with anything. And I'm going to see how that looks on my canvas. So well, when you spread it out, it lightens up. It's not so dark. It's almost the same color as what I just made, right? Although on that gray, it changes color. So then I think, don't want it to be that light. So I took some of the dark green and I added to it the purple and the grass green. And I got this color. Now, you go seafoam, my emerald green, Kelly green, whatever, and then this. This would be my shadow green, because it's in the same family, just darker. I didn't even use black. That's the great thing. You don't want to use black too much, because if you add black to any color that you're mixing, forget about making it lighter. The black takes over. It's like, yeah, go ahead, try. But you can't. It's dominant. It's a very dominant color. So I'm going to take this shadow green. And one thing with your brushes, when you have it like this and you want to get that line, roll it to a point, roll the paint out onto the point, and then you can actually do that. So wherever it dips, wherever that indentation is, that's where you paint. Now on canvas, it's a different story. And you go just like that. Now there's a wrinkle on this side. So what I'm going to do is take and go to the right and do that shadow. And on the other side, same thing. There's one over here, right here. So the sun is over her head and on her back, so it's going to make these things shadows in a different light, so to speak. Now, this is for a realist kind of look. And this is kind of like what I go for when I'm doing little peoples like this. I try to make them look as real as I can. From a distance, people think they're real people, and I get the biggest kick out of that. And even under here, because under the collar, there's not going to be any light getting here. You know, so you don't want to have too much attention to that. So you can go right up under the collar. Just like that. So, I don't know how it looks. See how it looks in the camera. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, it does give you the idea that there's depth to it, that this isn't just a flat surface anymore. You can tell, it's like, oh, that's a wrinkle. And like when you start getting into the backside here, sometimes it's better to do the dark spots first and then do the light over top. And I'll show you what I mean by that. The same thing on canvas. I know you all probably thought this was going to be art like on canvas. Well, it is eventually. I just wanted to show you how I go about showing depth from something that's already got it, it's already raised up, to something flat and making that flat look like it's raised up. That's a tricky thing. So if you get this down, you got it. You can do anything. But this is just the method that I use. So I will take sometimes, I'll do the dark areas first. Like I'll go in and go, okay, that's going to be a shadow. That's definitely going to be a shadow. I haven't figured out what color green I want to do the ribbon in, but it's going to match the apron in the front. So I'm going to do like this. And this is a really dark green back here. And I'm just kind of filling in little places where I know would show that it's basically under shade. It's not like laying out in the open. And I'm going to outline that here. And that's when you do this way, it doesn't matter if it's messy to start off with, because you're going to fix that with the top coat, the top layer, the main color that you're going to be using. So I don't worry about it being super neat at this point. Because it's water-based, if that bothers you, get it wet, get your cloth wet, get a piece of your towel wet, like that, wet it up, and you can wipe that off. It'll come off. Because it hasn't dried yet, you can get it while it's still wet. So don't freak out if you think, oh no, I messed it up, I ruined it. You didn't ruin it. And so I'm going to do the center part of this back, just so you can see what I am referring to. About used up that paint anyway. So when I'm doing these indentations, or wrinkles as you might call them, it invokes depth. Even though you can visibly see there's depth there, but from a distance, you want to be able to see it also. There is one rule that has to stay in place because it's true. To view a painting properly, to get the correct effect of the painting itself, unless you're studying brushstrokes, is from 3 feet and further back. When you look at a painting in a museum, you don't want to be right on top of it, because you're not going to be able to see the painting. You're going to see blur. So you step back and you look at it from at least 3 feet. That's when you get the proper effect of a painting that you're viewing. I'm going to do this, then we're going to do a little bit more mixing, kind of like get you familiar with that. So for this section, I don't want a real skinny little brush to use. So let me clean this one off though. I just rinsed it off. You have your clean water and your dirty water. The clean water would be if I was going to use this brush again. After I cleaned it, I would, if I needed to wet it. If I don't, I don't. I like to use straight paint, but you can use, you know, a diluted kind of brush. I don't particularly like to do it that way, so I usually am doing a lot of cleaning and reusing of the same brush. And I thought I had, I'll use the angled brush, it's fine. It's a little bit wider than I wanted to use, but it'll work. So now I need to do this color, because that's the color that is the dominant color of what I use. That with that yellow, like I have. Get my Kelly green again, and I'm going to go right next to it. This is final layer, I call it. Now I can even do this. This is what's great about it. Since this is a lighter shade, if I paint over that dark, it really makes it look like it's part of it. So if I just go like this, because now it's all blending together, but it still looked, you can tell that dress is wrinkled just by doing that. It's light enough and dark enough that it looks all one color, and that's the point of it. Okay. So I'm just going over it, and it's very subtle. The wrinkles and the shades in it are very, very subtle. And that's what they're supposed to be, subtle. So that you know there's wrinkles there, but it's not so like they're like hard and crisp and, you know, just kind of in your face thing. Now because the sun's shining over her head, you know, she could have spots on her dress that are going to be a little bit brighter from the sunshine. Typically the shoulders. Remember where your light's coming from in your head. I mean, I used to go out and do on-site paintings with an easel. Plein air, they call it. And because you're out in the air. And so with this, as I come down, you can see that dark doesn't go anywhere. It's already dried actually. And it blends right in with what I've already done. That's the beauty of acrylic paint. It blends right in. Granted, it dries fast. Sometimes you have to kind of be careful about your time frames in working with it. But if you can see, I don't know that you can get that from the camera point, but you can see that there are these dark spaces, and that's where the fabric is folded in. It's a wrinkle. It gives you perspective. You can look at it and go, oh yeah, that's really poofy, just by the look of it. And that's the effect you get on your paintings eventually. It's not difficult. And I'm going to put this, fill this in here. This is going to be a shadow anyway, just like that. And her little dress is coming together quite nicely. So, same thing with where her feet are. If the light is coming from above, and she's already gotten her little apron dirty in there, because I made it look a little dirty. She's my little dirty garden girl. But where, you know, her toes are going to have some dirt on them, so they're not going to be totally clean. So if you're messy down there, it's okay. That sort of thing. So think about it as if it was real. As far as colors goes, I gotta get that other brush out of there. You don't want to leave the brushes in the water. I just let that one because I need to make sure that it cleaned really good. And then we'll mix some other shades with green and yellow. And like I said, if you right on the back, or you can even do it on the front, right next to the colors, like, okay, I did one dab of this, and you know what your dab is. You know how much that is. You know, if you want to go ahead and measure it, go for it. I personally wouldn't do it. If you want to go by like 1/8 of a teaspoon kind of thing, go for it. So I had the medium yellow and the dark green, or deep green as they call it, and that gave me my emerald green, the green that I wanted to use. Now I have this lemon yellow. No, this isn't lemon. This is the yellow medium. It's not so, no, actually it's orange in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do it on the card. Okay, that much yellow. That's how I do on the palette. That much yellow. And then the brush to mix them with, the angle brush that I used before. I'm going to take this deep green, that much. Okay, you see the amounts? Not much, right? I'm going to see what it comes out to. I'm going to mix them together. Ooh, what a pretty color. Some people, like Crayola maybe, would call this spring green. So if I wanted a really bright spot, I can make that. Because of the yellow. The yellow changes the green shade. And, you know, I could kind of put a little of that in. I'm going to cover it. But I could also change her apron. I could change where this apron has this for the straps. Right? I could change the straps on here. So all these greens will go together. Just like that, just a little bit. To change the look and give her more depth. Actually, I like what I'm doing here. This is really cute. I like these colors. I like cheerful, bright, earthy colors. And as a matter of fact, that's what I'm going to make her bow because that's part of her apron. I'm going to turn her a little behind around here. I'm going to put this up here. Just like that. Now I'm going to do something a little crazy. The darker green, to make sure this all comes together, and this is where the seamstress in me comes out. I'm going to put dots, polka dots. I'm going to put polka dots on her outfit. Just to make it all just kind of like come together. It's just kind of funny stuff that I do. But that needs more yellow. You can even mix it on top of there. Go like this. I'll show you how to do the polka dots. I can't wait to do the polka dots now. There's a lot of kids' clothing from back when it was polka dots. That's why polka dots are such a hot item nowadays. Everybody likes polka dots. Now Monet, who was an Impressionist artist, give you a little bit of a art lesson history here, is my favorite. And he did paintings with dots. If you ever look at a Monet painting up close, you can see it's nothing but millions and millions of dots. But when you step back and you look at it from a distance, it doesn't look like dots. It gives you the impression of exactly what he intended it to be. And that's why I love Monet, because he was such a unusual way of making something seem so real. And I did actually my own version of a Monet, and I gave it as a gift to my son, my oldest boy. And it was all his most famous collection that I'm aware of, that I knew of, was the water lilies. And so I did my own version of Monet's water lilies. It turned out really well. I was very pleased with it. And so now I'm going to turn this way, get the other side, and we're going to do some polka dots. Now to do the polka dots, or do any dots, I'll tell you a little secret. Monet's way of making water reflections, or reflections in the water, where the sun hits it, was with the end of the brush, paintbrush, and he dipped it in the white and made the dots in the water. And from a distance, it looks like reflecting water. It is the most coolest effect and I think that's probably why I love him so much, because he thought outside of the box, like crazy outside the box. And that's what made it so neat to discover him growing up and discover his art. All right, there she has her ribbon that goes along with her little apron here. And to do the dots, I'm going to use that dark green that she has. And I'm just kind of touching up the front here. This. Now, I'm going to do a Monet. Only I'm going to use the grass green because it's in the family. So it's not going to be exactly like the rest of the dress. I'm just going to go just like that. That's all you do. You stick the back end of your paintbrush and you go like this. Now this gives it more character to me. Anyway, there are so many different ways you can make texture. Sea sponges are great for that. I've used them to do clouds. And that makes them pretty neat. I'm just tapping little dots on here to give it a polka dot look. And then of course I need to do it over here because this is the ribbon, right? Coming around. It doesn't have to be specific. There's no rules. You don't have to put, the dots in a certain place. You don't have to put them in a certain order. Just so that there's some dots on there. It doesn't matter where they are. You're not weaving the fabric. You're just making it more interesting. Let me think. She has dots on her ribbons. I just thought about that because I was always saying, how can I jazz that up a little bit? So that is with that yellow, the medium yellow. Now we're going to add the lemon yellow, which is really light. So if you think about it, you can make light or darker. And this one is not open, or is it? Well, it was open at one point. So let's get it reopened. There it goes. And same amount of the lemon yellow. Put the lid back on here so it doesn't dry out on me. And that dark green. Now since a lot of people like to do landscapes and flowers and stuff when they first start painting, that's why I'm covering those colors. So the greens are really important because you can do so much with them. And then take that deep green again, just one swoop of it, and mix it in with that yellow. Now it's really similar, but what I noticed is there's more of a bluish tint to it. I don't know if y'all can tell. One is more yellowy and one's more bluish. And it's weird because the yellow is lighter. You'd think, why is it bluer? Because more of the green is in it now. Okay, so we did that. What happens if you add blue to green? Well, let's find out. I'm going to take that medium green right there. Get that off of my brush. And I've got different shades of blue. This is how you get your teals, your blue greens, and all that good, those colors that everybody loves right now. They're like the in thing. Well, this is almost like a turquoise. It's called Lake Blue. I love this for doing eyes, blue eyes. Makes beautiful blue eyes. And then I'm going to put a dot the same size as that green one right there. So I have two little, basically 1/8-inch dots of paint. I'm going to mix them together. Let's see what I get. Oh, well, it's a deeper shade of what was already in the tube, but it's sort of greenish. So I'd say that's a good deep turquoise. It almost looks like turquoise jewelry. It's a deep color compared to this light. See the difference? There's the light and then there's the dark. That's what the green did. Now you want to see what happens when I add some white to this? Let's see what happens to the white. It's not a real dark color, is it? No, it's not. So I might add a little bit of white. Same amount as the other two. And now we have a pale turquoise color, just like that. So now it's even lighter. So it works better with the medium to light colors if you want to lighten it with the white. Now, when I say it's easier to darken something, now I've got this light, it's too light. I want to darken it. What should I darken it with? Another blue or green? Depends on, since it's a greenish blue anyway, so let's add more green. Let's add that grass green, because it was a dark green. We'll add that to it. Now it's darker, but you see a lot of the green in it. I don't want to see so much of the green. So what I do, add a little bit more green. That should fix it. And now you've got this deep bluish greenish kind of color that is really, so it's really sharp. So you see the blue and you see the green. So now it looks like it's equal in color, combination. And you're thinking, what is she going to do with that thing? She's just messed up her canvas. Oh, well, you know what you can do with this? I gave a student an assignment, and this is what I'm going to give to you. I want you to play with your colors. I want you to try mixing greens and yellows. And then I want you to try mixing greens and yellows and blue. Just those three colors. And see if you can come up with something. Because I'm going to come up with something with this to share. This is I call it a true blue. It's called ultramarine blue. There are some colors that all those artists on TV, they use the same things all the time. I kind of dabble around. So that's the ultramarine blue. It's very dark. Reminds me of deep blue eyes. And I'm going to mix it with this color I just created. I like this color. Now there's more blue in that green. Almost looks. Now these colors remind me of something. And the assignment I gave the young lady was, I did something just like this on a canvas. And I told her, I said, I wanted to see how creative she could be. So I told her, so when I come back next time, I want you to have made something of this. She already had an idea in her head. She goes, oh, I already know what I'm going to do with it. That is a little girl that's not afraid to be an artist. And she already was doing some phenomenal work. 8 years old, I think, or 10, 8 or 10. And she was doing amazing things for her age and never having had a formal art class. You don't need one. All you need is some paint and some canvas. Get some paint, get one of these little canvases. I would love for you to share them with me. You can find my email address, I'm sure, on here. But give me a thumbs up. Let me know that this is kind of neat. She's going to be finished. Next thing is, I'm taking you to canvas. And we're going to play with canvas and paint. And we'll see where it goes from there. I am not a Bob Ross because there's no rules in art. Not in my classroom. And so that's why you just got to get out the paint, get out the canvas, brushes, and just play and find out your art inside you.